There we go. So, welcome to round 2, where we have the match between Lars and Johan, Lars Meusen and Johan Mees. Lars, a main stage of Gentry since the beginning, the community leader pretty much behind the Kortrijk leaderboard or community on 4 color gates, it looks like. And then we have Johan Mees straight out of, I think this is Marksem, yes, with mono blue, it looks like. Yeah. So we started with mono green versus Drakes, and now we have mono blue versus 4 color gates. There we go. And we are already into the game with a Siren Storm Tamer for Johan, illustrating very well what this deck aims to do is putting down some small threats and protecting them very well, while Lars is going to be playing a slower methodical game with a lot of guild gates, aiming to get payoff in guild summits and gatebreaker rams in Gates Ablazes. Curious Obsession for Johan is the payoff card, is what makes everything worth it in this deck. And Lars has the Gatebreaker Ram to push back against the mono blue deck. One of the strategies that are very good against the deck is trying to rush them by putting a stronger clock, since half the cards that they're playing are protection for their creatures, not that much interaction, especially not with creatures that you are casting. It's pretty much the safest card you can try to push out against them. A lot of people seem to think that mono blue was a very good choice for this tournament. We have a guild summit here, but it gets met with a negate countering it. The Guild Summit, the card that gets these players out of a lot of pickles. Crowd Spiral again for Lars, ramping up his lands. Crowd Spiral, enter, for Lars to ramp up in the land department and draw a card. One of the most enabling, let's say, cards this deck has, since you're taking such a tempo loss by playing almost only lands that come into play tapped. Lars seems to be playing a 3-color variant. Let me quickly... No, he's playing 4-color with white. He currently has 4 gates, so that's a 6/6 Vigilant Trampling Ram. Pushing back and illustrating very well exactly what this mono blue deck is struggling with, in just a faster clock and ignoring the card advantage machine that is a Curious Obsession. Keep coming in. Yep, you can hit me for 2. Yes, you can have that card. The victory condition is on the table and you have no way of interacting with it. And that's the statement he's making. And it looks like that... No, there are 3 blink of an eyes. Oh, yes, and a 1 of Entrancing Melody. One of the better answers to Entrancing. Entrancing Melody. One of the better answers against the ram. Unfortunately, it only looks at your own lands to see how big it should be. So he took away a 6/6 Vigilance Trample and got a 2/2. Yep, that's a 2/2. It could have been so much better. Guild Summit. Let's draw some cards, get into some more gas, some magical gas for Lars here, who now again has to go look for extra possibilities to push back. It's going to be a bit harder now because Johan has more lands. They also play Wizard's Retort, so there are unconditional counter spells hiding in the deck now. Johan with a grip full of cards. See, yeah, Wizard's Retort, a Merfolk Trickster in the hand, and negate, an extra Curious Obsession. Chooses not to play the 1/1 unblockable, the Merfolk, no, not the Merfolk Trickster, the Mistcloaked Herald. Heralding very problematic times for Lars, who seems to be pretty interaction light here. See, Optiferi Gates Ablaze. Another Gatebreaker Ram. For Lars, which is an 8/8 right now. So, one hit kill. And it looks like Johan let that resolve and is now attacking. And he's attacking into the Gatebreaker Ram with his own Gatebreaker Ram. Oh no, we're at turn... Wait, did I... No, we're in the same turn. Okay. Wizard's Retort for the second Ram. Now Johan needs to survive for 4 turns again. 3 turns with this one. And he needs to top deck at least one blink of an eye to just survive another turn. With an opt for Lars. Magical gas beats classical gas. See, Gates Ablaze in hand. It's still looking pretty rough out there. Two mana. Shimmer. That's a start. Finds Gate Colossus. That's another lethal threat to put on the board. Another opt. So Lars mounting up a scary defense. Johan will have to find interaction to stop this board. And in the main board, yeah, 3 blink of an eye is the only interaction he has. 3 mana, Gates Ablaze, the card, the unfair card, gets negated. Second Gates Ablaze gets spell pierced. And then we have a Merfolk Trickster. Ah, yes. I wasn't thinking about that for the other ram. And that locks up the board, because that means that Johan gets to attack 4-5 unimpeded mono blue, taking a game 1 against 4-color Gates in Lars's hand. And we go to the sideboard. For mono blue, there is extra negates, a spell pierce, 3 fairy duelist, 3 devious cover up, 3 deep freeze, 3 quench. So a lot of very interesting interaction possibility for Johan. I think everything except the fairy duelist is interesting to bring in. So it'll be very curious to see what he actually sideboards. For Lars, there is 4 Shivan Fire, 4 Healing Grace, 3 Naturalize, 2 Negate, 2 Essence Scatter, and there again everything except the Healing Grace has some value in the matchup here. So also very interesting what Lars will be choosing to bring in against this opponent. So for people, to give you a bit of context, the 4-color Gates Lars is playing is a version, an updated version of what a lot of people a month ago would have unanimously said is the best deck in the format right now. It was unbeatable, it had great payoff cards, but it still has to sort of put everything together, and there's not that much play in the deck. The deck plays itself to a certain degree, and what I mean with that is that very often it's very obvious what your best play is. You have very big powerful effects. You have Gates Ablaze, raise the board, you have Guild Summit to refill your hand, and usually you're just dumping everything into that just the time when you need it. So a very straightforward deck to play, a very straightforward deck to build as well. It feels a bit uncommon locked once you start adding a 4th color, usually white for Excellence Binding, because you want Guild Summits and Great Breaker Rams and Gates Ablazes and Gate Colossi, and oh wait, that's already 4 cards you want 4 of. So a very interesting deck. It sits very well in the metagame right now, but it has some very clear weaknesses in hand disruption, in the Ors of Aggro decks really prey on this deck, and mono blue is also a decent choice if you want to beat Gates, even though the mono blue matchup is rather draw dependent on the side of the mono blue player, and maybe very important as well, very skill dependent on both sides, especially after sideboarding, where you do get the interaction on the side of the 4-color Gates, usually in some enchantment removal, in small burn spells. So especially after sideboard, it becomes a very interesting matchup. Also, for we were on the side of context, and I spent most of the time talking about the 4-color deck. Mono blue Aggro. This Curious Obsession deck is the deck that won the last Mythic Championship. Autumn Burchett won, I think it's $50,000 in what was formerly known as the Pro Tour by playing the cheapest deck that you can play in Standard. It's one of the easiest to build, cheapest decks. It's a very interesting option in Gentry if you know really well what other people are playing, what you need to play around, which counter spells. It's a very interesting deck to deck build with. Because you get to tweak your counterspell, your bounce package, and make little adjustments everywhere. It's a very flexible and skill rewarding deck. Mist-Cloaked Herald for Johan on turn 1 this time. Opt for Lars on turn 2, because Guildgate's coming into play tapped, of course. And another Guildgate. I think that's Azorius Guildgate. So right now we are on Jeskai mana, blue, red and white. No green for the Ram. Of course, islands and forests are the two basic lands that he's playing, in addition to a sheer infinite amount of Guildgates. Curious Obsession on turn 2, as the Doctor ordered, crafting the sequence that many call the mono blue God Hand. Turn 1 creature that comes through. Turn 2 Curious Obsession with protection. Turn 3 sit on counter mana. Maybe drop a Siren Storm Chamber. No. And then sit on Spell Pierce and negates and dive downs. Wizard's Retort here. To get rid of the second Guild Summit. No green mana for Lars here. Second Curious Obsession for Johan, and Johan very well poised here. If he has the required protection in hand to make it through to the next round undefeated. Who won? Johan won the first game. Yes, I should have made a an indication for deck and games won, but unfortunately, with renovating my roof, I didn't have time to update the stream setup. Gate Colossus for Lars to start fighting back. Opt for Johan. And there we have blink of an eye for Johan to stave off an attack. And third Curious Obsession. Pushing the curve, pushing the clock down. Lars in a desperation mode, seeing all these Curious Obsessions. Another Mist-Cloaked Herald. For Johan, who's now tapping surprisingly low. This is a window for a protected Gates Ablaze now. Maybe this is Johan admitting that he doesn't have sufficient protection for that one creature and hoping to go wide. This does pose lethal next turn with the adapt on Pteramander, but that requires some more cards to be in the graveyard here. But that would have already been the case had he not played the second Mistclothed Herald. We see at least a dive down in hand. That's enough to protect against a Gates Ablaze. We're at Lars' turn right now. He's considering his options. He does not have a Gates Ablaze, that's clear. We know about the Gate Colossus, and we see that Vivian Reed there on top can destroy creatures with flying, so it doesn't answer the Mistcloak Herald. Vivian Reed. Kills the Pteramancer. That gets dived down, and that is the spell that will give him enough to adapt. He already had enough to adapt next turn. And Mono Blue in the hand of Johan Mays goes 3-0 and advances undefeated into round 4. Thank you.